Awesome. Well, hi, Krista. It's nice to see you again. I love that you're back for the reboot, the video reboot of Momtellectual.
It's very exciting. Thank you for having me back. It's so good to see you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's really good to see you. I love your colorful background. It's so fun. So I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our Momtellectual audience, and also then we'll do our celebration. Okay?
Sure. Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Krista Rizzo. I am a transformational life coach, speaker, reinvention expert, and my journey is kind of long and extensive, but currently I help people and organizations overcome struggle by busting the myth of perfection in order to do the work to get to the other side. And really what that just means is I help people be better and stop dealing with all the stuff that goes on in our heads. And Tamsin and I were just kind of talking about that prior to starting this recording, because we are kind of our own worst enemies sometimes. And the way we have to reframe our brains or retrain our brains is important. And so that's what I do. And I am so excited to be here to talk about it.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So what are you celebrating today besides the fact it's stormy and exciting?
Well, it's stormy and the weather here is kind of junky, but what am I celebrating today? I like to get up every morning and do some meditation. That's part of my get ready for day kind of stuff. And something that I've been recently teaching my clients is when you're looking in the mirror and you're brushing your teeth, say 3 kind things to yourself about yourself. And I like to celebrate that. Like I like to celebrate things that I think are important for me. So today I'm celebrating, I was just elected to our new school board for our school district. So I'm celebrating that.
Congratulations.
I'm celebrating, thanks. Kind of weird. That's a whole different story, but whatever. And I'm celebrating just, summer and enjoying ourselves. And really, there's a lot of good stuff on the horizon. So I like to be really grateful for that. And just the fact that I get to wake up every morning is something to be excited about too.
Right. The first time we talked was way before this pandemic thing and all the stuff going on. So
much.
We saw our first monarch of the summer yesterday when we were out for our family walk.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, orange is my favorite color. But I love monarch butterflies, and my son, he's turning 11 this summer. He loves butterflies. It's such a fun thing to see a monarch, but I'm also like, every time I see them, I'm like, I hope you come back. They used to be all over the place. I'm 50. They used to be all over the place when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Right. Because I used to live out in the country. There were fields and grass around. They were everywhere. So, but I am celebrating because we saw one.
Yay! I love that.
Yeah, I love monarch butterflies. And it was a family thing. My son.
Oh, that's good
too. So
I love a good family outing.
Yes, we try to get for a family walk every day.
Oh, that's good.
Not pouring or too hot.
I know. Right.
Yeah. So I invited you back, and we did chat a little bit before we got started about what we're going to talk about. We want to talk about the book that I just wrote, The Paradox of Success, is a guide to creating your own personal definition of success. And I know part of that you went through and you talked about it in our first interview way back when, which is very interesting. So episodes 13 and 14, if people want to listen, it wasn't a video podcast back then, but people want to listen to Krista's first few interviews with us. And so I think you've been through part of that journey on yourself and found what you want and how you wanted to kind of restructure your life to be actually a life where you felt successful instead of just had ticked off the boxes of the things you were supposed to do. So hopefully my book is enough information to get people to the point they can do that. But then there's the pushback. Then there are the messages we get from ourselves and other people about why we're wrong.
Yeah.
Why we're failures when we're actually feeling more successful or whatever that looks like. And you said, okay, let's talk about that. So this is going to be new conversation for me too. I'm curious. So what did that obviously rang some bells for you and
Sure.
connected. So where do you want to go?
So, there's a lot of ways we can do this, right? I think for people in general, I think everyone's definition of success is different. That's why I love why you're writing this book. And I'm not quite finished, everybody. So, but I'm almost there. But it's true. We have been conditioned to believe that success looks a certain way.
Yeah.
In society, right? When I was growing up, success to my parents looked like, they were from New York City. They lived in the Bronx, and success for them was moving to the suburbs, buying a home, both working, having kids, and just like existing in that life that was kind of what their ideal or what had, been taught to them.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I was growing up, it was like, okay, go to college, get a job, support yourself, also get married, have kids, but do the house. You know what I mean? There wasn't a whole lot of deviation from the plan, quote unquote plan, right?
And I don't know about for you, but for my parents, it was very much get married and then have kids.
Yes, not yes.
Finish school, get married, and then
Yeah.
have kids.
Yeah.
And it has to be in that order.
Yes. There were rules in my house too. But I think that now I'm a parent and I have a son who's going off to college next year. So we're like in the middle of, looking at colleges and all that stuff, and all the stuff that's happening in the world is much different today, right? We didn't have access to things the way we have access to things now. Instant gratification wasn't a thing the way it is with our children, because they have access to seeing things and devices, and the world shrunk very quickly when I became a mother, right? It was like all of a sudden we have this stuff. And it has forced me to open my eyes and kind of take stock in, would I have done things differently had I known that I actually had the choice to do that? Or was I just trying to just appease people, right? I didn't want to ruffle any feathers with my parents. I didn't want to, I just thought that was how we were supposed to do things.
Yeah.
But now that I've been around quite a while and I see how other people have made different choices, I sometimes say to myself, I wonder if I might have done a few things differently. Do I regret the choices that I made? Not at all. But like, I don't want to force anybody in my lineage right now, where I've got kids and all those things, the same as you do, to say, this is what you have to do. Yeah. I don't ever want to tell you what you have to do. Yeah, I would love for you to be able to go to school and get educated, and I would love for you to, have a great job. But what you have to do is be happy and make good choices and be kind and be considerate and be compassionate. And I think those things are more important than going down a path that has been pre-written for you, that really, who wrote it? You have to write your path. And so in terms of the pushback stuff, I think for me, pushback really started when I decided to leave my corporate job and start my own business in the coaching world, right? And it was, well, I think I'm gonna, instead of go right into getting myself another corporate job, because I was burnt out and exhausted and all the stuff that came with that, I really took some time for myself and figured out that maybe that's not what I want. And maybe that path that I thought was the right path wasn't the right path. And so I kind of had to get over the internal pushback. Like, can I do this? Is it something that I am available to do? I'm smart enough to do, like, all that stuff, that self-deprecation and that doubt and that stuff that shows up in your brain. But also, how am I having this conversation with people who have seen me be successful in this company that I was working in, and then say to them, well, I'm going to throw all that away, not throw it away because it's really valuable experience, but I'm not going to continue on that path. I'm going to go back to school and get a coaching certification and try to start my own business from literally nothing. And I got a lot of, are you sure you want to do that? Do you think you're qualified to do that? Do you have enough money saved? Are you going to be able to figure it out? And there wasn't a whole lot of, oh my God, this is really great. You'd be so great at that. There was a whole lot of caution, right? Not necessarily pushback, but the pushback I got pushed, and this I think is fascinating too, because I have a lot of these conversations with people. The people you think are going to be the most supportive of you are never the people that are. It's the people that you most, that are very unexpected, right? So when I started that journey, like going back to school and doing the thing, my husband was super supportive. I expected that. Maybe I didn't expect it. I wasn't even really sure, because he was like, all right, well, if we can afford it, then do whatever you want, right? Like, that's fine. Just don't bankrupt us. Okay. So far, we're okay. Right. But I mean, I had friends who I thought were going to be super supportive, and they were like, what are you doing? Like, why wouldn't you just go back to work and like make a lot of money and just keep going on? And not like, wow, you'd be really great at this, or wow, you should just try this. And if it doesn't work, the people that I expected it from, I didn't get it from. And the people that I didn't expect it from surprised me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I feel like that can be a consistent theme with a lot of people, right? Because it's like, not everybody either. Also, what I had to learn is that's their own problem. It's not my problem, what you think about me. And that came much later on in my life, right? Because when you're younger, you always care what other people think about you. Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? Am I successful enough? Am I doing all the right things? Are people judging me for whatever they're judging me for? And you know what? It doesn't matter what people are saying about you behind your back. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. One of the most successful, one of the best tips I have for actually feeling successful and not caring what other people think are to be a 60-year-old woman. It's not advice that works. You can't just, it doesn't help 20-year-old guys.
Right.
But,
Yes.
but there is something about the experience of living through, and maybe you have some insight on this too, but I think partially it is living through criticism and coming out the other side and realizing you're better off if you don't listen to the me.
Yeah.
But also just time to know yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was the best part of my transition, right? So just for a little context, everybody, in case you don't go back to listen to the other two podcasts, but I had a very long-standing career with a major corporation. I had a big job and I had a lot of responsibility, and I was, doing very well for myself. But there was an environment in that place where I was working that was very, very toxic, and it caused me a lot of stress and overwhelm, and there was depression, and it was harassment, it was just really ugly. And it lasted about 1.5 years. And during that 1.5 years, I had to decide what I wanted to do. And for me, it wasn't that I didn't want to fight this. I just realized that it wasn't worth my time, right? I didn't want to fight for this job, and I didn't want to fight. I wanted to be able to feel free. And by leaving that situation, making the choice to leave the company, and starting my own thing, that's when I really learned that I am literally the only person who can save myself. I'm the only person who can fix this. I can get resources, but I have to make that decision to get those resources. And I can ask for help, which is my favorite 4-letter word. But I have to make the decision to ask for the help, which was not something I had ever done before, because again, as a woman from a certain generation, if you're not proving that you can't do all the things, we immediately think we're not successful.
Yeah.
If I can't take care of the kids and take care of the house and have a super stressful job and have a schedule and have schedules for my kids and have friends and have a healthy marriage and do all these things by myself without any help, because that would look like I couldn't handle it, that's when you kind of implode, because that's how I imploded 100%.
Yeah.
And then you realize that, you know what, I'm worth just as much as everybody else in this room. And if I don't wake up and put that breathing mask on me, like when I'm in an airplane and the flight attendant says, put the breathing mask on you first, I'm going to drown at some point, right? So self-care was my biggest motivator, and it was the biggest game changer for me. Like learning how to take care of myself first and prioritize myself over everybody else, which, by the way, is not easy when you're so used to doing for everybody else, right? But you get to that spot where you recognize that you're like, hold on a minute. If I can do 20 minutes a day of something that brings me joy, and it's not really hindering anybody else's day, who's it hurting? Nobody. It's making everybody better, right? So that kind of is where I started in realizing that it really does start with me and my mindset and how I choose to address my own negative self-doubt, right?
Mhm.
And the doubt that, and the pushback or the doubt that other people have on me.
Yeah. And I start the book with getting people to question what success is, because I think a lot of people, I remember for myself, the last box I got to check off was having my son. And I was miserable. I love my son. I'm glad I had my son, but I was exhausted. I turned 40, like I had him at 39. So I was older as well.
I had one at 39 too. Yep.
Yeah. I was just wiped out, exhausted. I did okay for a few months, but I just got to the point where I'm supposed to be happy and grateful all the time.
Yep.
And yet I'm miserable. So I didn't right away question that I was supposed to, the whole supposed to be shoulding yourself stuff. I didn't question that right away. I just felt broken. I just felt like there was something wrong with me.
Yep.
And so I'm hoping to move people away from that to actually questioning what we've been told and what we assume.
Yep.
But that's hard. It's hard to do that. And because you're opening a door to, well, what next? Who am I and what do I want? And later on in the book, I talk about how, and pull on a whole bunch of other people, it is sometimes so hard to just answer the question, what do I want? Right. And it sounds like it should be really easy. It should be,
It's not.
No, it's not at all.
But that's okay. That's okay. It's okay to not know. I think there's a wonderment in not knowing sometimes, because it's like, okay, well, this gives me an opportunity to get to explore different things, right? It gives me an opportunity to get to try something new, or maybe step out of this comfort zone. I don't like the step outside of your box analogy, because every time I look around and I'm like, there is no box. Who put me in a box? Like, why do we feel like this box thing is a valid thing, right? But there is a comfort zone that we all kind of live in, right? It's like, do I want to go on that roller coaster? Nah, I don't really think I do, right? Because that's kind of out of my comfort zone. So that is a thing that exists.
Yeah.
But if you look at it as like, it's almost a magical thing to be able to say, you know what, I get this. I get to do this. I get to have the opportunity to try something new, or learn something new, or make a new friend, or try a new hobby, or whatever it is that you get to do. And I also like to couch the word get over have, right? Because have feels like it's a chore. I have to do this. Well, that feels like it's a chore. But if you get to do it, it feels like something to look forward to, right? So we have all these little tricks that we can use in our mind to kind of talk us into going down that path of uncomfortability a little bit easier. Yeah.
And there's a whole chapter on the paradox of fear. I don't know if you've gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was in a conversation about comfort zone the other day, and it's like, well, I really think you need to look at whether something's uncomfortable because it goes against your values. Like, is there disgust? Is there disgust there? And sales, as an entrepreneur, sales is one area where there's a lot of what I consider bad advice.
Yes. Yep. Agreed.
And advice that might be okay for some people, but that goes against my values. And so I think there are all kinds of different comfort zones. Yeah. Like I love learning new things and not going new places. We don't go anywhere now because we're still isolating, but trying new things. I was just talking about with my book, like I was not up for designing a cover because I didn't have a lot of faith that I could do something that I would be happy with. But I learned a heck of a lot of other stuff that I did kind of have to push myself into, because it wasn't my life's dream to learn some of this publishing software.
Right. I can't imagine why.
Right. So it wasn't that it was comfortable. It was uncomfortable to learn it because you feel dumb. Everybody, I think, feels dumb when you're learning something that doesn't make sense to you yet, right?
Right.
So there's so many different kinds of discomfort. And so I do, part of emotional health and being able to identify what you're actually feeling. Now I really look for that little tinge. Sometimes if it's not a little tinge, I notice it right away. But sometimes
Yeah.
there's that little thread of disgust.
Yeah.
Right? That tells you there's something about this that probably is going against a value you have. And maybe you want to dig into that, because it might only be 5% a bad idea, but if you can,
Yeah.
you can work with that. Yeah. So you were talking earlier about one thing you do. I just want to follow up on something you said about perfection.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, that is a barrier to a lot of people actually feeling successful. And I'm sure there's a lot of layers to it that you can help explore. But it's kind of the internal, like we can get pushback externally, but
Yeah.
in trying something new and trying to change, whether it's answering the questions or just trying to put something into action, perfectionism is a thing.
It is a thing. But here's the truth. There's no such thing as perfect. What did you just say?
Right on. I agree. Absolutely.
There's no such thing. Now, I'll backpedal a little bit and I will say there is a such thing as like having a perfect moment or a perfect experience, but nobody's day is ever going to be perfect. Nobody's relationships are perfect. No one's job is perfect. There's no such thing, right? So we kind of have to let that idea go, because there are a lot of people out there who are like, well, if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And what your definition of perfect is, like the definition of success, is different than my definition of perfect.
Right.
Right. My mom used to be a neurotic perfectionist, is what she'd call herself. She wouldn't leave the house unless everything was put in place, unless the carpet in the living room that nobody could walk on, by the way, went a certain direction, like the vacuum cleaner marks. Like my mother was that kind of OCD person. I'm not like that at all, because as a child growing up and having to, like, it wasn't militant by any stretch of the imagination, but it was like, I knew I couldn't step on that living room rug, because if I stepped on the living room rug, I'd have to get the vacuum out and I'd have to fix it, because God forbid somebody walked in and saw a mark on the rug. Like, who cares? Right. So as I was getting older and realized that, you know what, I don't have to do that. Right. I'm going to prioritize different things. And I feel like my mother missed out on things, because her Saturdays would be, even after we had a cleaning person come in, she'd be re-cleaning because it wasn't good enough or whatever. And my dad would go golfing on Saturdays and my brother and I would go off and do our things. And she would stay home and clean the house again, top to bottom, for like 4 hours or however long it took her. And then they would have then they'd go out to dinner or we'd do whatever. But like, she lost all this time doing stuff that doesn't matter. Right. So we kind of have to, and that is kind of what kind of makes me think about perfectionism, because she thought that was important. And there wasn't another person in her life that did. Yeah. Nobody cared that there was a mark on her living room floor when they came to dinner at her house. It was always going to be a good time. Right. That's what they cared about. They didn't care about the image of what perfection looks like. And I also think that for a lot of us, that's what we get caught up in, the image of what we think it should look like. Right. It looks perfect to the outside, like Instagram, like it's the social media stuff that really like gets me. Right. My social media is so not perfect, but I enjoy that about it. It's like, this is my life and this is what happens. And sometimes there's a mouse in my, boys' bathroom sink, like there was the other day, cute little tiny little field mouse. But where did you come from? And of course, I'm putting that on Instagram. I'm not going to put like a clean bathroom on there, because that's never going to happen. I have 2 boys, right? That I think is fun, and I enjoy that from people, right? I want to know what authenticity is from people. And like when you talk about sales and you talk about it in business, if I don't have a connection with you, I'm not buying stuff from you. And I am not the best salesperson on the planet. I'm not, I don't have tactics, right? People want to work with me because they feel a connection with me. And I think that for a lot of people, they weren't, especially in the sales world, that's not what they were taught. They were taught tactics and like ideas, and this is how you have to do it, right? And like you said before, there's a lot that I don't agree with. But as far as perfection goes, I think for a lot of us, we kind of have to let our guard down a little bit and get uncomfortable with being okay that the lights are going to flicker because it's raining here and there's a potential situation, or
Yeah.
my hair is going to get bigger as we continue to talk because it's humid outside. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But you have to be comfortable with that. And you have to be comfortable with letting the outside world see that too. Because if you guard that, then you're not going to feel like you're being successful, because something's always going to be like eating at you and bothering you. And it's like, well, what could that possibly be? Well, you know what? It's okay if your party wasn't perfect, that, somebody spilled a glass, or, the food wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be. Sometimes you can't help those things,
No.
right? There's only so many things that we have control over, and it's not a lot, everybody.
No.
It's not a lot.
Well, and I have the feeling, I'm hoping I'm going to get some good book reviews, but I have a
I'm sure you
feeling
are.
there are going to be some people who say, this chapter is
Yeah.
the best one, and other people are going to say that chapter was crap.
Right.
Like,
right.
And I just can feel that happen. And I'm sure if there's a negative comment that it's going to bug me to some extent, but I also expect it. And I think that, what is the saying? Done is better than perfect.
Yes, it is.
I knew I needed to, and I don't know why I'm comfortable with it. Like, casual is polish is not a part of my brand. That's what I say. I'm not a sparkle person, except I'm going a little bit gray. So that's where I get my sparkle. But I want to help people, and me sitting on something and trying to, edit and edit and edit, I'm hoping the book is going to help people. And so
Of course it is.
if it's not out there, it's not helping anyone. And I just do feel like I feel this tension between saying forget about perfect and kind of an underlying assumption that you don't care about how good something is, right? And it's not the same thing, right? I care about quality. I care about actually being able to help people. And if my book was garbage, it wouldn't help anybody.
Right.
But so this perfect is, I think it's an illusion.
Yeah.
And it stands in the way of actually doing what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. For a lot of people, it does, because is it ready? Is it perfect? Is it this? Is it that? I will remember when I published my book, a friend of mine was reading it, and her son, was on like page 5, like he was thumbing through it, and it was like on like one of the earlier pages, and there was a typo, and he's like, "Oh, there's a typo in this book." And I'm like, "There's probably 50 typos in this book."
Right.
And he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Every time you read a book, you're going to find a typo. There's not one book out there in all of the world where there's not a typo, whether it's a comma or a period or a misspelled word or whatever. There's always going to be a typo. I don't care who you are, and if you have the best editors, and if you have the best publishers, or even if you're self-publishing, but you know what? It doesn't matter, because it doesn't, like, there wasn't an apostrophe on it's, like, that's my typo. Okay. All right. I'll take it. You still read it. You're still reading it. Like, what? But you also have to, I like what you said, that your expectations are not that everyone's going to love what you have put out there.
Yeah.
None of us should expect that ever, right? But I've also found that the people that don't like the stuff that I've put out there are the ones that I learn the most from. I do. Because not that I want to get into an argument with them, or I want to rebut them, or I want to this, but I will read what they have said, or if they've sent me a comment or done something, and I'll listen to it, or I'll kind of investigate it a little bit more. And sometimes it's, people can just be mean just for the sake of being mean, because their lives are not theirs. And again, that goes back to, that's their problem, not mine. I don't know you. I don't know this person who's leaving this comment on this book that I wrote, or on this podcast that I did, or, vlog that I put out there to the world. there are people on it that said, this is really great. And there's one person who's like, well, this didn't help me. Okay. How can I help you if that's something that I want to continue that conversation with? Or thank you for your comment. It made me think, and then continue a conversation. Or sometimes it's like that person's comment it's not even worth my time.
Yeah. This
because
sucks
you know
and
that
you
there's
suck
like,
and the whole world
yes, like
sucks. And
there
that's
is
like, okay.
something much bigger going on in their life that unless they want to pay me a lot of money to fix, I'm not fixing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
you can't, a good friend of mine, when I started coaching, I was probably about a year and a half into it. And I was going through like a transition in my offerings and doing some things. And she looked at me and she said, you know what, Krista, you can't save the world, but you can change it. And I was like, huh. And she said, and I feel like, and she is a Reiki person. She does massage. And so she was touching my shoulders and she was like, you are carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders right now. You think you have to fix everything and everybody because you want everybody to be healthy and you want the world to be full of peace and love and flowers. And most normal people want that, but you can't save the world.
Yeah.
You can change it. You can put your book out and you can coach people and you can speak to hundreds and thousands of people. That's how you're going to make your mark and you're going to change things. And that kind of, the one sentence she said to me literally shifted my entire mindset that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I close the book with a quote, basically that I can let you know you're not alone on your journey and I can guide you, but I can't do it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have to do it.
Yeah. So let's pause there. And Momtellectuals, you will have to wait for a week till the next episode. But Krista and I are going to continue this conversation on about how to actually feel successful, but also deal with pushback once you know what you want. Sometimes the world doesn't want you to have it. Okay.